And it's important, brothers and sisters, something I want to put out there, which we shouldn't fall into, or the trap, is we shouldn't dismiss people because we don't agree with certain views that they hold. It's something that I've seen people do a lot. Okay, it's by this author, I'm not even going to pick the book up. I'm not even going to read it. And by doing this, we're really, short-circuiting ourselves. We really miss out on some valuable information. That being said, obviously, with the caveat, you need to, have a good, strong foundation and basis when you go into reading these books. Whether it be philosophy books or books written by certain Muslim authors who may hold certain theological views, you have to have your grounding in place. You have to have your foundations right. But don't dismiss people just because you've heard something about them. And this happens to a lot of us. I've fallen into this trap many times. But you have to go in cautiously. Don't go in. Whenever you read books, whenever I try to read a book, something I try to do, and this is a habit I'm trying to get into, don't take everything on face value. Don't just be convinced by all of the author's conclusions. Question the author, challenge the author. It's a very powerful technique when you're reading, is don't read cover to cover trying to absorb all the information as it's presented to you. Just challenge the author, have discourse with the author, whether they're alive or dead. Meaning, when you're reading what they're saying, and something I like doing, is say if I've read a couple of pages, before it becomes overwhelming and starts to really, weigh heavy on your head, close the book and really think about the concept that you've covered. Really think about the information that you've read and challenge it. Does it make sense? Is this in line with what you consider to be true? Where did the author go wrong? What points could the author have clarified a bit more? What points could the author have elaborated upon a bit more? What links would you make when you were talking about the same topic? So really engage with what's being said. It's very important, inshallah, when you're reading, because a lot of the times, and I had this big problem, because remember, I'm dyslexic as well. And one of the biggest, this issue was partly due to my dyslexia and partly due to the fact that I wouldn't read a lot. And I'm trying to get into the habit of reading more, is that we read and we don't retain. We read, and by the time we finish the session of reading, we've forgotten most of what we read. And there's ways of overcoming this. And one of the ways is to engage with the content. So pause after every few pages and really engage with the content and concepts that you've just picked up and challenge them and reiterate them to yourselves if you're convinced by them. And that way you will see that the information will stick far better in your minds than it would if you weren't doing this. And the more books that you read, and I was talking to a brother about this earlier, brother Sirtaj from Austria, another brother, mashallah, who's really taken to reading, and he reads a lot more books than I do, mashallah. He told me earlier today that he finished 50 books last year. And these weren't just story books. These were like proper academic type, research material. And one of the things we were discussing and that we mentioned was when you're reading, the more books you read, you should have a knowledge tree, make a knowledge tree. So not only summarize the books that you read, and what he does is he writes summaries. So he reads a book and he summarizes the book in a few pages and he writes it down. That helps him hold on to a lot of the information that he's read. But another thing that we mentioned we should do is collate all the books in a knowledge map or a knowledge tree. And what I mean by this could be something you put on paper or on your head. But when you read different books on similar topics, for example, you will see that the author covers the same topics in slightly different ways and brings new arguments and points to the table. So when you read one book, you've got this piece of information in your head. You read another book on a similar topic, you got another piece of information in your head. Now try to reconcile them, right? Try to reconcile them and see what image emerges. And the more books you read, the more information you digest, the more you'll start to see that you're able to link different things different authors have said, and this 3D image emerges in your head in regards to whatever topic you're studying. It's like saying, if I give you an analogy, it's like having projectors, right? So imagine there's 3D projectors, and you read one book, you have one projector. You read another book, you got another projector. You read a third book, you got a third projector, and then a fourth and a fifth and sixth. Before you know it, you have this array of projectors, and they're all projecting an image, and they're all projecting into the center. And as they're projecting, it forms an image. And the more projectors you have, the more dimensions you get of that image. And until you get this really deep and detailed picture that emerges, this 3D image that emerges. And it's a very powerful way of sort of mapping information that you're reading and content and developing your concepts and ideas. So definitely do that. So that's something to, I guess, really helps you retain information, and not only retain it, but to develop an image of the concept and the ideas that you're reading about.